Okay, so a very warm welcome to everybody. We've already done our intros, so save that from the recording. So in a minute, we're going to hand over to Simon, and Simon can give us a little intro all about him and talk about his workshop. Before we jump into that, I just want to say a big thank you to Simon. I saw his session at Inspire East in Cambridge last month, and it was a fantastic session. Not to big him up too much before he starts, but it was a great session. And I straight away sent Debbie a message and said, we need to ask Simon to come and present this. And we actually asked at the last user group meeting, said, what do you think? And everyone said yes. So hopefully we're all here to learn some screen flows right from the beginning. So are we ready to go, everybody? Want some big smiley faces, maybe some cheers, some thumbs up, yeah, that's great. People are starting to look more enthused about flow on a Tuesday afternoon. That's what we need. Right, without further ado, I am going to hand over to Simon. Simon, take it away.
Lovely. Thank you, Emma. And thank you, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen. It's a pleasure to be here. It really is. No pressure, all of you turning up to watch me, but thank you very much. Right. So, as Emma said, if you do want to take part, then you want to go to your Trailhead account and you want to create yourself a dev org and just load that up. We're using the dev org because it means it's easy to get use the information that's already in there and it's very consistent. I'm just going to quickly move this around to get my chat. There we go. Fine. Okay. So let's go. Talk about me. So this is a presentation. I've called it One Screenflow to Go, Please, and a build along for first timers. So this is based on the theory that for me, I was very, very frustrated with flow for a very long time. I just couldn't work out how to do it. I couldn't understand the variables, understand where I should be using it, things like that. And what I wanted to create was something where you'd actually start the event and leave with your own working flow. I found that was probably the best way to do it. I'm very much a kind of tactile learner. I need to be doing the things and breaking and messing it up to learn. So I thought I'd want to replicate that for you. A little bit about me. So I'm the Salesforce manager for a charity called Education and Employers in the UK. I'm the solo admin there, just me. And it's mainly based around Experience Cloud. So we have a site that connects volunteers in schools. We have about 20,000 volunteers in the UK and about 10,000 teachers across the UK. And they connect on our site to go in and talk about their careers. Myself, I'm a career changer. I'm sure, heard of the super mums. They're the loud, noisy lot that usually turn up at the user groups and make a bunch of noise. I'm one of those. I changed, I think it's on the next one, 6 years ago. So 6 years ago was when I first started in Salesforce. I've got 4 certs at the moment working on my advanced admin, and I've got the 2 associates and a 5-time ranger, just because I enjoy doing those kind of things. And I've got a colleague in Salesforce who I had to try and beat. So it's always good to have those kind of targets. You have to have somebody who you're fighting against. It's my LinkedIn there if anyone's interested. Email and Blue Sky. All the good people are moving away from Twitter onto this Blue Sky thing. It's much nicer, much calmer. So if you're on Blue Sky, you can find me there. Aim of our session today, as I said, I want at least 2 people. It's good. I've got good numbers, chances 36 of you, so hopefully I can do this. At least 2 people to leave the room with a working flow. One of those is going to be me, because as I'm doing the demonstration, I really want to make sure that it actually works. It did last time, so I'm hoping we're going to have the same thing this time. And let's go on to about ScreenFlows. So ScreenFlows, I say, they're quite an interest of mine. I use them a lot within my org. What do we use them for? What do they do? Well, for me, they allow you to have that dynamic interaction between your user and it enables you to have a multi-step process in one place. So it's something where the user can interact, make changes. You can then put it down different pathways depending on what it is they say and what they do. And you can have multiple steps along that way. So it kind of fits well with the business process. You can break it down into 3 rough areas. So you can use ScreenFlows to view data, simply showing people stuff that's in your org. You can use it to create data. It's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be creating a case. And then you can use it to manipulate data. So stuff that's already in your org, you can show it to people, let them interact with it, update it, make changes. As an example, I'm just going to show you some of the things that I have in my org that we use. So this is just a little box that we have on our contact page. And this is to show the type of people that are in our org. If you think your record type is often used as the thing to differentiate types of contacts. For me, we're very interested in the activity of the people in our org. So I start to show information about the invites they've received, they've responded, their percentage of respondances, how much their login happens. And for a teacher, you've got here again, nice clear words here so they know exactly who they're looking at. This purple line for us represents primary, so that's something that we know. And again, we start to see a lot about their activity. So this is a way I'm using kind of like a headless screen flow, just chucked on a contact record page to summarize a lot of information as soon as my user looks at that screen, saves them having to scroll down related, scroll down details. It's just right there, all the key information I expect them to look at first of all. So that's the view data. This is an example of a create data. So this is one of my screen flows that my teachers use when they're looking to create an event. So as you can see here, we've got a couple of things going on. At the top right, we've got a little tutorial mode. And you saw when I clicked that, it showed or it hid various examples which the person could use. On the bottom left-hand side, we've got a little tick box with X's and with ticks. So when they start filling things in, you can see the X's will change to completed or not completed. That's because I don't like it when somebody has to click next to get an error to say you didn't fill in a box. So instead I use this as my method of having a really visual way of saying you haven't done this or you have done that bit. And then the third example is here, is a manipulate. So can anybody see the screen flow here within this box? I'm guessing you probably can't. The screen flow is actually that bit of text there. Take a tour, learn how to navigate around. So it's something that I've integrated into the page. It's completely non-noticeable. And this is for when a volunteer logs onto our platform. This is the flow, what it looks like. So it runs as soon as they log on to my community. It checks out the contact records and see if they filled in various details. If they're missing something, instead it will show them. And in this case, it's just a quick one for a job title. So if we have a volunteer who hasn't filled in something that I want, it will simply show them that bit saying, hey, can you fill this in, please? Once they filled it in, it disappears and it simply goes to this other page, which is this one here, hello, can you see me? Which is just simple text. So those are 3 examples of how you can use screen flows to try and get people to fill in the data that you want or to see the data that you want them to see. We go on to our use case. So this is what we're going to be building today. We're going to be building a screen flow that allows somebody to create a new case record. So let's go through our scenario. So here the support team want to be able to create a new case related to a customer from a contact page. If the case origin is phone, then the user is required to add a phone number. So that's something we want to do only if the case origin comes in as a phone. So I've broken this down. This is what we're going to do. We're going to make a screen flow launched by an action button on the contact record page. The contact ID is going to be automatically detected. So we won't have to enter that in. They'll know exactly who it is. They'll know exactly where the flow is being launched from. We're going to ask the user some details and we're going to fill in some other bits ourselves. So we've kind of got a mix going on there. This is a really good question. Why build it when it already exists? As you know, there already is a new case button. So why on earth am I looking to build something that's already there? For me, it's about providing that extra context and the options we say compared to standard features. So I can add user guidance to help them. If you think about the one I was doing with the teachers with the tutorial, if I just created a record page for them saying make an event, I haven't got anything extra there to help them. But when I'm using my screen flow, I can add tutorials. You saw I had a video. There's lots of stuff which I can do, which kind of gives them that extra guidance. I can add decisions and this conditional visibility. So depending on what it is that people put in, I can either put them down lots of different routes or I can show them extra information. An example may be on that event. If a teacher puts in a date within 1 week, it will show them saying, "1 week's too soon, you need to add a later thing." You can do that through validation as well, but it will say to them, you need to actually have some a little bit longer to be able to create this event. So you can do lots of things depending on what they enter. You can pre-populate. You'll see that today. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be entering various details from the contact onto the case, so they don't need to do that already. And we can complete additional tasks within one flow. So therefore, what we're building fits more of a business process. So going back to my event, what you could have is a teacher creates an event. After they've done that, it makes an email be sent to the teacher confirming what they've done. Maybe an email sent to somebody within my team saying that this is in a new event which has been set up. Can you support? It can create a task. It can do a whole bunch of things in one go. So it's really useful. That fits the actual process rather than simply creating a record and then having to go and do lots of other things. And the final one, why build it? Well, it avoids you doing other things, such as having to sort out your data because your boss wants Agentforce, but you know your data quality is terrible and you'll be blamed when it all goes wrong. So this is probably a bit more relevant a few weeks ago when Agentforce came out and everybody get excited. I build screenflows because they're fun and they're much fun than some of the other stuff I probably should be doing in my org. I don't suggest that, but I'll be honest, that's why I tend to do those kinds of things. Screenflow done. Let's go. So what I will do, I'm just trying to find my chat. Let me, I can't seem to find my chat anymore. No,
Don't worry, Simon. I can
no,
keep an
fine.
eye.
Lovely. Okay, then. So what we're going to do is we're going to start to build this flow. I've actually got a file which I will share afterwards. Apologies. I'm trying to share it in chat, but as I can't see chat, actually, here it is. Sorry, chat. There we go. So you should see in chat now, there's a link to a file which I've created, which will follow all the steps that we are going to do. So first thing we're going to do is you're in your org. And as we said, we've gone to service. So we're at our normal window here. We're going to go to setup and the setup menu. And from setup, we're going to go to flows. We're going to use a quick find on the left-hand side. Just type in flow. You'll find it here under process automation. Click on that once. And it takes you to your kind of standard page where you get to see all your list of all your flows. If I'm going too fast, if there's any issues, you just give us a yell, because what we want to try and do is try and stop and manage this so people actually, it's no point me running through as fast as I can and you not being able to complete it. So if some of you want to, then just say, or you can have a bit of help and we can have a quick stop to see if we can keep you online. Okay, from your flow screen, we're going to click new flow. And when you click new flow, you've got here, you can either use a template. So there's some templates that Salesforce has already built for you, which kind of gives you a basic skeleton. And we're going to go start from scratch. I don't think I personally have ever used a template, but I think they are probably useful for some people. I usually start from scratch. It's the one that's already ticked. And we click next. And again, these are all the different flow types that you can have. The recommended first one we're going to go for is a screen flow up here. Click create, and it's going to take us to this page. Right, we just have a little look at this page from the moment. So we have our start element in the middle, we have the end, and then we have the little plus. Little plus is how we add things to our screen flow. If I just click on that, you can see all the elements that I'm able to add. On the left-hand side here, right at the top, we have our toggle toolbox. This is where we can get to see our variables. So I like to have this toggled open straight away. And we have at the top auto layout or freeform. So people build in different ways. I like to build in freeform, but I think freeform is going away. So I'm going to stick to auto layout at the moment. It's kind of probably one of the better ways to be building it. And it actually, there's a lot of options that are only available in auto layout that aren't in freeform. So once we're on this page, there we're going to do a couple of things. So with any flow, you have things called variables, and these are the bits of information that you are using to either create a record or you're collecting from a user. For this one, I'm going to need two particular variables. The first one is going to be what's called a record ID variable. Now, if you think this ScreenFlow is being launched from a contact page, I need somehow that contact page to be able to tell the ScreenFlow who the contact is. And the way we do that is we create a record ID variable and we mark it something called available for input. And what that means is that the page can talk to the flow and it can tell the flow which contact we're looking at. So on the left-hand side in your toolbox here, I'm going to click on New Resource. I like to think of variables as post-it notes. It's literally a post-it note. I'm writing something on there which I can look at a later stage and use at various points in the flow. So I like to think of those as post-it notes. So we've clicked New Resource and we come to this page here. It's asking us for our resource type and we're going to choose a variable. And the API name is the name of that variable. So this we need to be quite particular about in this case. It's going to be called record ID with no spaces, but you need a small r and a big I. So record ID like that is your API name. And then our description. What I'm trying to do here is best practice, not how I do in my org when I'm under time pressure. So you really, 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 I feel very hypocritical, want to be writing descriptions all the time in your flows. It's very useful for you. And where it's most useful is when you come back in 3 months' time, you can't quite remember the flow in the same way you do when you built it. And you suddenly need to find out what it was you were doing. So a description for this, for me, would be the variable to collect the contact ID. You'll work out what your descriptions are, but you do want to be adding something. Now, further down is my data type. Now, I'm going to actually choose the record here. The reason is I want to have all the information from that record later. I don't just have to choose text as far as only having the ID. I actually want the whole record. So I'm going to choose record. And for my object, I'm going to choose contact. And very important, available for input, meaning something outside the flow can write to this variable. And that something outside the flow is the contact page that it's on. So we're going to click done. And that's our first variable created. Excellent. Now on to our next variable. I said we need two. Now the second one we need is basically it's a blank case record. Because if I'm going to be collecting data, I need to be writing that data somewhere, and I'm going to be writing it on a blank case record. So I'm going to create a new resource. I'm going to be choosing a variable. And this I'm going to call new case record. With the naming, the most important thing is to have your own consistency and have that consistency written down. As I start building, you'll see what are the variables that I use. There are a couple of places online you can see kind of some standardized naming conventions. Doesn't mean that they're the legal naming conventions. You can use your own, to be honest, as long as you have something that you can actually go back to. I don't particularly like some of the ones that are online. I like these ones, and I think they're quite easy, to understand. So we're going to give it an API name of new case record. The data type is going to be a record again. And the object is going to be a case. I'm going to write my description, the new case record. So what we're building there is just simply a blank record so that we can start to write things into it at various points in time. Fine, there's our two variables. Okay, that's important you get those things sorted first in this case, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to do some of these next steps. So what
Sorry,
we're now...
Simon, I have a
Yes, go for it.
question. It's Joe here. Did you tick available for input or output in that last creation?
In the new case record, I don't need any of those.
Lovely.
So because it's all being done in the flow, we don't need available for input for output. These are really useful to learn because particularly on available for output, you sometimes have to be careful. It can share a lot more information than you want it to
Hmm.
share. So only available for input on the record ID.
Lovely, thank you.
No problem. Okay, here we're going to go. Let's start with our screen then. So we're going to click on the plus in between the two elements. And where you can see how it's broken down here. Interaction, so we've got the screen here, the logic, which is where we kind of do various bits with data. And then the pink ones here, these are kind of the hefty ones. These are create or update or actually do things to the database. So you've got to be very careful how you use these ones. I'm going to go for screen and
Simon,
open.
I'm going to pause you just one sec.
Sure.
Let's just do a check. Has everybody who is following along got their two record variables?
Yes.
Great. Okay, no one's shouting to say that they need them, so fantastic. Go for it, Simon.
Thank
Carry
you.
on.
Please do stop me. I get on a roll and I just zoom on and I forget to stop. So please say oi, Simon, if there are points where you do want to stop me. So here we have our new screen. If we have a look on the left-hand side, we have components and fields. We'll get to those in a minute. The middle bit is kind of the canvas, I guess. And on the right-hand side is where we have to write stuff. So the first thing we're going to do is give this actual screen a name. So talking about the name conventions, I use CSCR for screen. That's what I'm going to be calling mine. I'm looking at my list here. Screen, case, details. It's going to be my label and my API name. If you click tab, it will autofill the next one. Description, really important here. Screen for capturing case details. That's what I'll put. Feel free to put small bits in the descriptions this time. It's just remembering that you should be filling something in. Also on the right-hand side, we have configure header and configure footer. So the header is this top bit, and this is your footer. I'm going to open these up. I never use a header. What the header shows is the flow label name, which if you're like me is something like ScreenFlow case make thing before whatever. So you really don't want people to be seeing that kind of thing. So I always immediately remove my header. And then on my footer, I also can make some changes. So you don't have to show it. If you think about those two headless flows, which I showed you, where they were the teacher information and the volunteer information, those were done simply by removing the footer and leaving the middle bit. In this case, we do want the footer. So my next finish or finish button, there's a few things you can do. You can have the standard label, custom label, or hide it. You can't hide all the buttons. You have to have something there. So in this case, all I actually want is an X button. But I want to use a custom label because wherever you can, you want to try and consider what action it is the person that is doing and what words resonate with them. So next doesn't resonate, finish doesn't resonate, create case does resonate. That's what I want to be doing. So those why I'm going to be changing the custom labels to those words. And I don't want a previous button and I don't want a pause button. So that's simply how we're going to be for our page. Now, at this point, I'm going to click Done. And we're going to click Save. So on your top right, click Save. And this is your page. So for the flow label, again, you want to be looking at some kind
Sorry,
of...
Simon.
Yes,
Just because that was a bit fast.
no problem.
For the previous button, there
Yes.
was so I'm zoomed in, that's why I can't see everything on my screen. Hide previous and hide pause. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. So for all of those three buttons options, you can use a custom label for any of them if you wish, or you can hide them or use a standard label. In this case, we're just going to use a custom for next and finish, and we're going to hide the previous and hide the pause. So if we go back to that save, again, you want some naming conventions here. So you want to be able to kind of sort your flows in a particular way. I will often start, if I'm using subflows, I will start it with subflow. It makes them easy to recognize. ScreenFlow, I'm going to go with ScreenFlow. And it is create case record from contact. That's what I'm going to go for. It's okay to use kind of abbreviations, But if you abbreviate too much, you don't know what it is. So scrufla cracasra from con, I don't quite remember what that is a week later. So you have enough characters, write it so you can actually remember what it is. And again, in your description, we're going to say what it is. So it is a screen flow to capture a new case from the contact record. And we're going to click save. Now it will name it at the top, give it a version, and we're ready to carry on. We all ready to go for the next bit? Just say no if you're not. All good, lovely. So let's open up our screen again. So you click on it, either I think you can double click on it. Yeah, you can double click on it or click on it once and click edit. And we're going to go back to this screen. Now, what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be starting to add some of the fields from that case record, because this is going to be the point where the user is going to interact with it. So I've chosen just a few. We're not going to pick all of them. I'm just choosing a few of them. On the left-hand side, there's two ways that we can do it. So components are basically blank spaces that you can name and you can then assign to a field on a record. If you actually click on field itself, this gives you the ability to directly take those fields from the case record. This is why we created our case record first. So if we click on fields, this will become a little bit clearer as we go on. So we click on fields and it's asking us the option for a new record variable or record variable in here. And if you click in there, you can see the new case record that we have already created. So I'm basically saying that blank bit of paper, which I created earlier, I want to look at that, please. Click on that. And then suddenly all the fields that are available on the case record, we can see them there. Okay, now that that's set, we're going to flip back to components. And we're going to scroll down on the left-hand side. So the inputs are obviously the ones that the people can interact with. But if you go all the way to the bottom, you've got three here: display text, repeater, we're not going to do that today, and section. I always like to section stuff out myself. You don't have to do this, but what you really want to make sure is that your screen flow looks good for the people who are working with it, so you can spend a fair bit of time ensuring it looks good. So there's two ways to get it across. If you click it, it will move across the middle. I like to drag them and drop them at the right point, particularly if I'm dealing with lots of different elements. Opens up my section. And on the right-hand side here, I can configure it. So I'm simply going to click Add Column, and that's going to give me two columns that I can add my fields to. You can see here how I can adjust the sizes. So we've gone for a 210 there, so I can have something particularly big. We're going to stick at a 6.6 just for everything, keep it normal. Once your section is in, we're going to go back to fields, and we're going to start to drag in our fields. So the ones that we're going to go for, let me just have a little look at my, here we go. Right, so on the left-hand side here, we're going to search for our case fields. We're going to choose subject. When you start to type, it will reduce down your list. Drop it wherever you want to drop it, don't mind. Subject. We're going to choose description. As we're doing this, you'll notice I don't have to do any naming of any of these. This is really quick. I'm basically saying that field, chuck it on the page, please. If I was using components and then assigning them later, let me just show you here. If I was using a component, suddenly got to fill out lots of other stuff about it. Can be quite useful, and we'll explain why it's useful. But at the moment, it's really easy for me just to grab the fields from that variable I'd created and chuck them on the page.
Sorry, Simon, can I go back a little bit?
Yes, go for it.
So I've got the subject and the description, but then you had a text field as well.
Sorry, my bad. You don't need to do that. That was just to show a few of the different things that you can do. So all you need on this is subject and description at the moment.
I've got that. Okay.
Perfect. The other ones we're going to add we're going to type in the word case, and we're going to choose case reason, case origin, and case type. So there we go. We've got 5 fields here that I've had to do nothing to because I've simply grabbed them off that variable and chucked them on the page, and those bits are ready to go. Are we all okay to this point? Right.
No, wait, hold on. So how
no
did
problem.
It's all right. Simon's going to sit and count to 30 in his head.
I will.
So my quick question is, so I got in subject, description, and case reason. How did you, my description goes across the entire.
That's fine. So what you
column?
possibly did here is if you see if I grab it and I move it around, it creates little lines where it's trying to go. So it doesn't matter where you put it. You've probably got it below your section, so it looks like this, which is fine. It's however you wish to build it. This is just how I've done it on this case.
Okay. And I made it work. So there we go.
Perfect. There you go. So yeah, just drag and drop for those components. So if we think back to our use case, one thing we said is that we want to have a phone number if the the case origin is phone. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add myself a component now. Now components are a bit more flexible. So for example, on a component, I can make it required when it's not required on the actual record itself. That's one of the obvious ones. I can give it a different name. So when I'm dragging it from fields, it has to be the name that is on the actual record page. And if you think internally, you might use case sensitivity level or something like that, where what you want the user to see is importance of your query. You want to be using different words. So there's times where you instead would use components and rename rather than just dragging the field off the page. So what I want to do is have a phone number here. So on the components, I'm going to start to type phone. And it gives me a special type of input called the phone, which basically means that we can, do phony things with it. So I'm going to grab it and drag it on the right-hand side here. Now it's opening up lots of different things here. So first of all, the API name, as you know, they all need an API name, no spaces. So I'm going to put client phone number. Whoa. But I'm going to change the label to client. Actually, I'll do the same. Client, I can't even spell. Phone number. So I'm making the label a little bit more usable. This is why I might look to use a component. Salesforce has got a lot better at putting their information, have told us to do this for years, but often they haven't done it. They're getting a lot better at putting the little help text in for the fields now. So you can read a lot of this stuff here about what it's useful for. If I just run through, disabled means can the person change it? Pattern is about whether it's maybe a UK or a US based number and you have your dashes in between, so you can set that out. I don't need to do anything there. Placeholder, do we want something written in there to tell you? Read only, again, you can only see it. Required, I want it to be required, so I'm going to put in true here. And then a value. So what we're going to do for the value is we're going to actually put in the phone number that's on the contact record. If you think I haven't done any get records here, I've only done a record ID variable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click in the value and you'll see it comes up with the different variables. I'm going to go to my record ID with contact underneath. I'm then going to start to type in phone because that will help reduce it down. And then I'm going to choose this bottom one, business phone. So if I just run through that again, on the value at the bottom, I'm going to go into my record ID, which is a contact which is starting off this flow. I'm going to type in phone and I'm going to choose the bottom one, business phone. And what I'm basically saying is when you're looking at the screen, it's going to pre-populate with the phone number on that contact record page. We all okay with that? Fine. Zoom on for the last bit. Set component visibility. I don't want this to be visible unless phone is the chosen case origin.
Sorry, Simon.
That's right.
I clicked on done by accident. How do I get back to
Fine. If you've clicked on done, all you do is double click back onto your screen and it opens it up again.
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
Sorry, Simon, I also have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
I don't have anything in my required field. What do we put in there, sorry?
In the required field, we're going to put true. So if it's blank, it's like a null. It's no, it's not required. But for that, it's a Boolean, true or false. So that puts the little red star on saying somebody has to fill it in.
Perfect. That's fine. That's
Okay.
okay. In there now. Sorry.
Perfect. So on this screen now, we're going to click again on that phone number. So we've got these variables. And I want to set component visibility. So this is where the screen flow gets really fun. This is where you can show stuff or hide stuff depending on the values that are kind of put into a flow. So I'm going to click on set component visibility. And then where it says when to display component, I'm going to choose all conditions are met. And that's going to open up this new thing on the left-hand side. So what we're looking for is we're looking for when the case origin is set to phone, then I want it to be shown. So when I click on resource, I want to go into that case record. So I'm looking again at that case record. And I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to type in origin, just to help me pick up the case origin. It's going to be equals, and I'm going to choose phone. So I'll do that one more time. In set component visibility, we've chosen all conditions are met. We're adding one new condition, which is the new case record. You see the arrow across. Start to type in origin and choose case origin. The operator is already equals, and the value is phone. Click done.
Just to highlight that if you're not really, really careful, you can end up not picking a value there, but think you have.
Yes, it is. It starts to get a little, I mean, they're slowly improving the UX. As you can see, we're down on the bottom right-hand side, partly squashed up. So it does sometimes help to zoom out a couple of clicks just to give you a bit more space on your page. Yeah, I've definitely done that before.
Well, I think I tried to tab twice and on both occasions ended up with no actual value selected. So anybody else who keeps thinking they got equals null, but they know they selected phone, that'll be why.
And I got an error saying the data type of the resource you entered isn't compatible. And I have the new case.
Did you write phone or did you choose it as a pick list value?
Oh, I don't know. Let's see. No, I chose it as the client phone number phone on the screen components.
Oh, is this are you talking in the component visibility?
Yes.
And so it's an origin. So what you want is new case record and then origin.
Okay.
And then the origin will equal phone.
Okay. Can you show me the little pop out so I can see it again?
No problem. Let me just quickly do this. So I've chosen the field here.
Yes.
When to display component, I choose all conditions are met. In my resource, I want to choose my record single variable, which is my new case record. So I click on that once.
Okay.
And then I start to type in origin and it reduces it down to these two here. And I'm looking for the case origin one.
Okay.
And then it's already equal. So I click in the value and then I can just choose from my pick list values phone.
Phone. Okay.
And then done.
The wrong one. Okay.
Lovely.
Thank you.
So that's our page done. So the next bit we are going to do is we're going to click save. Just click save, always useful. Again, you will have done this. I know you're doing something on the train or whatever and you lose internet connection. It's still buggy, flow build. So always get used to your saving because otherwise you can do an hour's worth of work and then lose it and it's is horrific. So now that we've created that, we're going to do a couple more things. If you remember, I said that we're going to assign some values, some kind of core values. So I'm going to click the plus here, and we're going to choose an assignment. And what an assignment basically is doing is writing some extra stuff onto that blank record that we created in the first place. So I'm going to write it. I've clicked on it, and the label is going to be assign core, core case details. I'm going to slightly speed up because I know I'm taking time here. So this time I'm not going to write a description. You would write a description though. So what we want to do on the right-hand side is we're going to start to fill in, as I say, some of these other variables that we need on a case record. So let me see. Okay, the first one we're going to do. So the variable, this left-hand side is saying, where do you want to write it? So I'm going to say my variable is on my case record here. And I'm going to start to type in contact, and I want the contact ID. So that's basically saying on that new record with spaces, who is this person? I want it to equal, and then I have to find where it is in my screen flow. Now we know that the contact was brought in through that record ID. So I'm just going to say, I want it to equal record ID, contact ID. That's it. Take it off there, write it onto my case record, please. The next one we're going to do is a status. So again, the left-hand side, where do I want to write it? I want to write it in the new case record and in the status field. And this time it's going to give me the values that I can choose. So I want it to say new. Two more, I want to add the account. So I'm going to the new case record, account ID. And on the right-hand side, you can drill in to some of your record variables. So even though we got the contact record of whoever it is, you can drill through to their account. So again, I'm going to go to the record ID. And then here you can see I can drill through the account ID, type in ID near the bottom, and there it is. So we've got new case record account ID equals record ID, through the account ID, select the account ID.
Simon,
Yes.
is there a reason you choose that instead of just the account ID on the contact record?
I think it's because I'm just used to drilling through. That's I guess that's I'm used to going that way. But yeah, you're quite right. You could just do it on the contact. I think that's probably a habit thing, is I tend to go through quite a few records.
Cool.
But
Thank
no,
you.
very good point, very good point.
Simon, could you just go through that last one again? I
No
didn't
problem.
quite follow it. Thank you.
Okay, so the variable, as in where we're going to write it, is on our new case record and account ID. And that is going to equal, we're going to go through our record ID for the first one. Then I'm going to go for what Debbie says. She's quite right. Account ID is right there. You can choose either. Both work. If it's written on a contact, it will be. You can have it from your contact, or you can drill through to the actual account record. And then the last one is the phone number. So we're going to go new case record.
Sorry, Simon, can I interrupt for
That's
a
okay.
sec?
Yeah, go for it.
The first time you did that, I had record ID and then account ID twice. That's what I've got. Have I done something wrong?
No,
Have I
that's
just done
fine.
it how you done it the first time?
How I did it the first time. So there's two ways. So one of them is, so I guess with the one I originally showed, kind of shows that you can drill through records quite a bit. as it happens, account ID, because it's on the contact, you can just choose it straight from there. So either of those two methods work. To be honest, both of those are useful. This one, the one Debbie mentioned, it is much cleaner. It's straight off the record. So, that one does make sense. I guess in my first one, it shows you that you can kind of drill through. So just for our last variable, we're going to choose new case record. We're going to type in phone and choose the phone. This is where you get, when you're using components, this is how you access them. So on the value, if I click on here, you'll see at the top, I've got the screen. So what it's basically saying is I want to go to the screen that the person wrote it in. So I click on screen case details, and it will show me all the components that I have on there. In this case, there's only one. It was only the phone number that we used that was a component. So I'm going to click on client phone number, and then I'm going to choose the value. Be okay with that?
Almost, yes, I think.
Lovely. Okay. We're going to go on to our next stage now. So now that we've written everything, I imagine that what we've been doing in those first two elements is we've been writing in pencil on that blank case record. Now, when we get to the pink thing, that's where we're going to create it and we're going to write it in our Sharpie. So that's where you kind of really write it and you actually make an impact to the database. So I'm going to click on the plus. And I'm going to scroll to the bottom. You can type create if you want. We're going to choose a create records element here. The label we're going to give it is create case record. And your description would be create case record or something like that. Okay, on the right-hand side here, we actually don't need to change anything initially. So it's asking me, how are you going to set these field values? Well, all I want it to do is to basically make what I've written already. Once we made that variable in the first place and assigned things to it, I'm just saying it's already there. Can you just make it, please? So I'm going to choose from a record variable. I only want to make one. And then at the bottom, it asks me, okay, which variable is it? Well, it's that new case record that we created at the beginning. And that's it. So all you need to do on the create records here is give it a label and choose your new case record variable. Now we're going to click save. And we're going to do two quick extras. Are we all okay at this point?
Nope.
No? No problem. Are there any particular things? Do you need me to go over the create again? So what we did is we clicked on the plus and we chose a create element. So that would have been, we could either write create here and it will say create records. That then opens on the right-hand side where we need to give it a label. The next thing, how to set record field values, should be from a record variable. I think it's the default. We only want one. And when it's asking for the record from these values, we should have two options, really. One is the new case record and one is the record ID. We want new case record. I'm going to move on from this bit now. So that should create our case record. Last thing we want to do is to create two separate screens. So the first one is going to be a confirmation that it's been done. One of the points of screen flows is to tell people and interact with them and make them understand what's happening with the data. So this screen is simply to say the new case has been created. So I'm going to click on the plus, click screen, and we're back to this page here. So my naming convention is SCR case created. You would remove the headers and the footers. I'm not going to for these two screens, but again, you want to tidy it up, you can remove those. We're simply going to label it screen case created. And then in our components on the left-hand side, you can start to type in text, and you're looking for this one here, display text. We're going to drag that into the middle. And we're going to give it a title of title case created. So this is simply a box where I can show the user something. They can't interact with it. I'm simply showing them. So I'm going to write in here, your case has been created. And that's it. So my screen, sorry. My screen was called screen case created. I went into components and dragged across a display text. And then I wrote in it, your case has been created. We're going to click done. And then there's one more thing we have to do, which is an error screen. So if something goes wrong, what you don't want to do is your user to get there's been a problem, there's been an error. The administrator knows. You want to make it a little bit more usable. So if I go back to my create case record and I click on it once, I've got the option to add a fault path. So if I click on fault path, it brings me this dotted red line. And this is what's going to happen if there's an issue with creating the record. It's going to go down this path. So I'm simply going to add another screen. And I'm going to call this screen error. I'm going to grab a display text again, which I'm going to call title error. And I'll write something useful. There's been an error is all I'm going to write today.
Sorry, Simon, how do we get that red line to appear?
No problem. So to get the red line to appear, you hover over your pink create records, click on it once, and you'll see create fault path at the bottom options.
Thank you.
Simon, when I click on that, it says add element.
So you clicked on here and then did you click create fault path?
I think maybe that's where I'm going wrong. I can't see that far down the screen. Let's make it smaller.
If you've got to click on the actual component, the pink bit itself, not above or below.
So I've got that, but see, once you click on the add element for the fault, do I then click on screen?
Yes, correct.
Right, okay. Yeah. And then what names have I to give it over there?
So I just called it screen error, and I put one text box in that I call title error. I wouldn't worry about those bits too much. This basically is just what you would do if there was a particular fault. Okay, I'm going to give 2 minutes and we're going to I've got 8 minutes and we're going to chuck it onto the page. So I will pass on these instructions. You'll see, and also if there's a few issues, feel free to speak to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to chat to people about Flow later. So I'm going to imagine that we've got to this stage. We're going to click save. And it will get there eventually. There we go. And I'm going to click activate. Ideally, you would do a debug, and I will just show you. Don't worry about doing this time. But if I clicked on debug, it gives me an opportunity to run through the screen flow and see whether it's working or not. So it's asking me for an input variable. Remember, we created it that you could put into the flow a contact ID. So I'm going to start to type in Rose Gonzalez and choose her. And I'm going to pretend that this is on Rose's page. I'm going to click run. This is what my screen looks like. So you can see it's offering me the option to put in some details. My case reason, my case origin, I'm going to choose email first, my type. And then if I click create case, that would create it. I want to test that visibility component we did on phone. So if I choose case origin of phone, what happens? There we go. There's my client phone number. So now you can see it's pre-filled it from Rose's record. And if needed, I can update that now, or I can just leave it as it is because I've already got her phone number. The other thing to note is even though this is a required, if it's not visible on the screen, then the required doesn't kick in. So you can make lots of things required, but they will only be required if they're visible on the actual screen. So that's how I would debug. But here we go. Let's go back to here. We have our screen flow. We have it activated. We want to add it to a contact record now. So I'm going to go into my setup, back into my setup, and I'm going to go to Object Manager because what I need to do is create an action button. So into setup, Object Manager, and we want to choose contact. From here, on the left-hand side, we've got buttons, links, and actions. So we're going to click on that, and we're going to choose a new action. So once you're here, the main thing to be looking at is your action type. So what do I want to do? Well, right at the bottom, we've got the option to choose flow. So by clicking that, I'm going to start off a flow. Next, you will have the choices of flows available to you. If it's not active, I'm pretty sure you won't see it here. So it's important that you have to have your flow active. You'll recognize the name because I made it really obvious. And then I just need to label it. So new phone case is what I'm going to call it. So we went to the Object Manager, we went to Contact, we went to Buttons, Links, and Actions and chose a new action. Then the values on this, the action type was flow. The actual flow was the name of the one that we've just created. And then I just gave it a label. And I'm going to click Save. So that's my button ready. Now to the final last bit. We're going to click on home and we're going to go back to our normal org. This is how I get to my Contact Lightning page. You may go a different way. This is the way I go. I find it easiest. So from my normal, the normal side of the Salesforce org, I'm going to click on contacts or find a contact record. Let's go for Rose. And from here, I can choose to edit page. Again, you will have your other ways of getting here. This is the method that I use. And this will take me to my Lightning app build. You'll recognize this, I'm sure. Let's wait for it to load. And what I want to do here is I want to add the button up in the highlights. So when somebody is on Rose's page, they can make this case really easy. So I'm going to click once on the highlights panel up here. And what I want to do is upgrade now. I want dynamic actions for this. This may differ slightly in your main org, but we're just, as I say, with the with the playground, this is what we're doing at the moment. I'm going to click upgrade now, and I'm going to choose start from scratch. I'm then going to click next and finish. What that's done is that's cleared out the buttons ready for me to add new ones. So I'm going to click add action. I'm going to click in here, and I'm going to have to search for my one. It's in the object-specific quick actions. So if you see, I clicked add action, clicked in the box, and my one was called new phone case. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to click done. And you'll see it appear now in the highlight panel of my contact page. Once that's done, I'm going to click save to ensure I save my page. I'm going to click activate because otherwise it's not live. And I'm in this case going to assign as org default.
Simon, sorry, is it possible to go back to when you first opened the edit page?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Fine. So with the edit page here, I clicked on the highlight panel at the top, this bit here.
Yeah.
I then had something that said upgrade to dynamic
Yes.
actions. So I clicked upgrade now, and then it asked me to either copy or start from scratch. So start from scratch next. And then the actions here, I clicked add action. I clicked in and I scrolled until I found in the object specific quick actions the name of whatever I just named my action.
Object specific.
Probably at the top of it. You might have called it new case.
New phone case.
Yeah, that's what I called it.
And then done.
Yeah. So, and then
Simon, can I ask a quick one when you have a moment?
Yeah, do you want to go for it now?
Yeah, so if you're in an org that is very wedded to page layouts and you want to add it to a specific page layout, is that an easy thing to do?
So you could, I mean, you can have different kind of lightning path. I've just done a default org here. Sorry, default for the whole org just for ease. But you could add it to specific ones, and you can also have those dynamic actions can be viewable depending on certain values. What I'll do, Bill, is I'll have a think of kind of doing a post on that because I think that is an interesting one. I think for this use case, we're just chucking it on everything. So I'm going to click save. And then we had to activate it for the org. So activation, assign as org default, next, save, and that's done. And then I can click the left arrow here to go back to my contact record page. And then in the final 3 minutes, we're going to run through and see if it actually works.
And I'd just say for anybody struggling, I think Simon's given all his steps in his doc, right?
Yes.
And I will eventually get this video published. I mean, I'll be honest, it probably won't be any time in the next week or so, but I will get this out at some point and we'll make sure it gets shared. So hopefully then you'll be able to catch up and correct any errors you've got.
Lovely. So here I am on the contact page, and we can now see my new button up here, new phone case. So I'm clicking on that. Here are those values I need to fill in. So the subject is test, description, test. My case reason, I'm just going to choose anything. My case origin is going to be phone. And you can see that suddenly brings up my client phone value here, that it's taken from Rose's number. My type, I'm going to choose electrical. And I'm going to click create case. Yes, it went the right way. It didn't go the other way. So here we go with my confirmation screen. Your case has been created. And I click finish. And there is our case. Created with all our values. Pulled in the account, it pulled in the contact, and then it mixed the values that we wrote in ourselves. Hopefully, who I can see it's worked for one. How many people has it worked for? It's got to be more than 2, and then I'm happy.
It worked for me, Joe, the one that asked all the questions.
That's fine.
So I'm very happy. Thank you.
1, 2. Oh, we're getting yeses. We're getting some yeses. Excellent.
Mine's failed at the debug stage, and then I just let you go and watch the rest.
Fine. Well, Shirley, give us a yell afterwards. Happy to have a look through it and just kind of get it finished off. That was a very quick run through a ScreenFlow. As you can see, it's hopefully on the document that I've put through, you'll see, there is quite a logic to it. It just takes a few a few goes, basically, a few goes, a few breaks, and then you'll be able to be creating these. You can make it look a lot nicer. There's a place called Unofficial SF, which is a fantastic website for different screen components. If you think some of the lines and images I had on my ones were basically from components from there. But I think that's me. Sorry, Emma. All done. Thank you very much, everybody, and hope it was useful.
Amazing, fantastic. Well, thank you, Simon. Right, I'm going to stop our recording.